Welcome back everyone to theCUBE. I'm John Furrier, your host. We're here at our New York Stock Exchange studio, theCUBE on the East Coast, of course, in the heart of Wall Street. Of course, we have our Palo Alto studio connecting Silicon Valley and Wall Street, all the tech innovation, MedTech Unplugged. This is our series, looking at the innovation in digital health, medical health, transformation is happening. Obviously, there's a lot of data involved. Louis Villalba's here, CEO of TMRW Life Sciences, TMRW, as you guys short it down. Lou, great to have you on theCUBE. Thanks for coming on, appreciate you being part of our inaugural MedTech Unplugged.
Great, well thank you for having me. It's a pleasure for us to be here.
You guys are a fast growing company in the area, in the life science area that people can relate to. IVF, freezing your eggs for women, a lot of women health going on, big wave of activity. This is a huge part of people's families. It's an area that's been kind of old school, antiquated, outdated process, and technology's coming in. You guys are harnessing this. We've got a little prop here. This is like a fast growing market, kind of underserved. Explain what you guys do.
Sure, thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity. So to understand TMRW Life Sciences is to understand ART, assisted reproductive technology. IVF is it's also recognized. And the IVF process is actually something that a lot of people, I think, they know someone in their life that's been touched by IVF, but it continues to increase because it's important to recognize that 1 in every 6 people suffer from some level of infertility, male, female. Yeah. And so it's a huge problem, and it's a huge problem across the globe. And if you look at the US in particular, and you say that we average roughly 4 million births a year, 2% of those births happen from IVF right now, all right? Now, we believe that number should be a lot greater. There's an access to care topic that we'll talk a little bit more, I think, further in this discussion. Yeah. But what TMRW does is TMRW is a tech-enabled solution to basically establish a digital chain of custody around the specimens that are used in IVF. So whether that be eggs, oocytes, embryos, sperm, and this sets up basically a track and trace mechanism for patients to utilize as they go through the IVF journey.
So we all can relate. We all have someone in our life that has been touched by this. It impacts relationships. But now you guys have a solution. Talk about the problem statement that you guys solve, because to me, I think it's an interesting area where it's like, okay, where's the modernization? Right? And two, is it an underserved market? Take us through the state of the art of how this works today, and why you guys are focusing in on this as a business.
Yeah, that's a great question, thank you. So our founders took a look at the IVF journey, as we like to refer to it, and looked at the storage part of the situation, meaning what you do with your eggs and embryos, and said this is actually in need of a solution. As much as things have advanced, I think it's important to keep in perspective that the oldest IVF babies in the world are just over 50 years old. So it's a young specialty in many, many ways. But more importantly, as things has continued to advance within IVF, what hasn't advanced is the track and trace storage part of the specialty, all right? And so when they looked at this and they came up with, thought about solutions for inventory management, that's where tech actually became front and center. But I think what's more important as people go through this journey and they continue to see, as when you go through IVF, it generally takes 3 attempts to achieve success. So what does that mean? That means actually you're going to access specimens that you generate, your biological specimens, generally on 3 attempts for each successful pregnancy. So we created a solution that basically has a tech-enabled background to it. We call it the Beacon. It's our TMRW labware, all right? And this is a very simple device and design. It has an RFID chip in the bottom, and then on the sides you'll see a numeric code and you'll see a barcode. Yeah. And these are redundancy in terms of the way that you track the specimens. That integrates with an electronic medical record system.
A little hook here, looks like some sort of robotic arm picks that up.
That's very much
robotics. You can be part of our robotics series too.
Yes, no, we'd love to. So TMRW actually was invented. It was invented actually as a complete end-to-end solution that had a robotic platform associated to it. And as we integrated and launched this technology, we learned a few things about customer preferences. And like all solutions, there is not one solution that fits all sizes, right? So we needed to actually develop several different applications to be able to meet our customers' needs. And to kind of look at that, evaluate how we do it, we take a look at actually one metric in particular. And so Tomorrow has really been in commercial business for roughly about 4 years. And in that 4-year time period, we've ingested 66,000 patients across our robotic platform. And that includes both on-site robots and tanks in clinics and off-site repositories that we own, operate, and manage on our own. And all managed through this one integrated system, because this is what interfaces with everyone's electronic medical
I
record.
was talking to my daughter, she works for Amazon, which I bought One Medical. We were talking about women's health, how that's on a rise from a product standpoint. Women's health is huge category growth.
Yes.
So macro check. But on the cultural side, we're hearing, always reading stories around women are freezing their eggs younger. There's always the classic pregnancy challenge, which
yes.
you guys are addressing head on. So two growth, so you got a growth market and two categories which have upward trajectory. But to me, I can't get around the whole trauma of mistakes, right, in this area. And there was a show on YouTube on Hulu, Switched at Birth,
Yes.
that highlights how some of these manual processes cause the problem where couples have a baby that's not theirs because it was just bad logistics.
Sure.
It's a supply chain problem,
Yes,
right? So I mean,
very much.
like manufacturing terms.
Yeah, very much.
Data custody, these are terms we hear about in data. Lineage, this is like more of a tech thing, but now in your world, that's the core problem.
Correct.
To me, that is huge.
Yes, very
Is
much.
that, did I get that right?
Yeah, you got it right. So this is, again, goes back to, why was TMRW Life Sciences created? It was created for several reasons, primarily to safeguard life's most precious cells. And the way that you safeguard them is you make sure that they are in a digitally controlled, platform, something that establishes with a digital chain of custody, interfaces with electronic medical record, offering the most secure, protection for any individual patient specimens. And these examples are as sad as they are and as unfortunate as they are across, every aspect you can think about in a human way. They do happen and they do occur. And the reason why these things unfortunately are happening, when storage was first established within reproductive health, you look back kind of the early 2000s, freeze rates were around 10 to 20%. So for every 10 patients that walk through an IVF treatment process, maybe 2 of them froze something. What changed was around 2015 when the vitrification technologies improved. People started freezing at 100% freeze rate. So 10 out of 10 people in that equation are freezing something. What didn't change was the infrastructure around that. Basically the dewars that were invented in 1950, these metal tanks, they still exist today, and they still exist, across a lot of IVF labs. And you look at the U.S., there are 450 IVF, centers across the United States of America, and across the world there are 5,000 IVF centers. All right, and so if you think in terms of how specimens are stored across all of these, types of points of care, you have varying degrees of quality. All right. We have been in the market for 4 years, so our mission is obviously to try and increase the standard of care. Do that by actually establishing we're the only FDA-cleared technology today in the United States, and we're the only CE mark technology that takes this and basically establishes a different level of care around tissue storage.
You're going through all the process.
Yes, very much.
I mean, you want to get that right on the front end. You guys doing the hard work.
Correct.
Where are you on that progress bar?
Yeah, on that progress. So I will tell you that it's when you're establishing a new level of care, it's always it's a lonely position to be in, but it's an important one because for all the right reasons, we think it's important to establish a new standard of care. And how do you do that? You do that actually by building something that's universal and can work with people in many different ways. And so we offer fully integrated solutions from a robotic platform. We offer manual solutions that address people's on-site needs in their metal tanks, and we offer off-site solutions to manage things, all in digital specimen management, everything that integrates with electronic medical records, so you can meet people where they are versus forcing them to meet you where you are. And our ability to do this and track kind of our progress, I think we focus on a few metrics. And one of those metrics are, what are the total patients in the platform? I referenced, we were able to basically ingest 66,000 patients in 4 years, all right? So how does that compare to the total opportunity? On an annual basis, IVF does around 450,000 procedures in the United States every year. when we look at some of the other companies that are in the space that do this in a very service-based model and what we would consider the old standard. So one of the other companies that's leading in the space has gotten to 70,000 patients in over 30 years. So if you think we do this in under 4 years, we get to 66,000, it's clear that digital specimen management is going to lead the way.
So it's a fractured, fragmented market from a provider standpoint.
Very much.
And really two players, you and someone else, kind of rising up in terms of the numbers.
Correct.
You guys get a little bit more scale in 4 years because you have the digital transformation nailed.
That's correct.
Is that the core problem you guys solve, is the supply chain and the quality piece? I mean, with this device here, I mean, how does that compare to the old way?
Yeah, so it's a very important question. So if you look at the way storage was managed prior to TMRW Life Sciences coming in, so things would, you would basically place things in glass vials, you have a handwritten label, that gets established, patient's name and the freeze date, and then that would be manually placed in a tank. It would be tracked in an analog system, spreadsheet most likely, and managed by an individual that had cryo responsibilities in the lab. So if you think about trying to scale something like that to thousands of patients, you unfortunately have the situation that you referenced earlier. Mistakes get made. And so
statistically, that there will be mistakes.
Look,
you can't guarantee 100% with a manual process.
That's very true, unfortunately. Now, what we've done with a lot of our existing clients now, we have close to 70 clinics in the United States of America that we've brought on in the less than 4 years. We can go back and look at all of the old inventories. We reference these as legacy inventories, and we basically pull each one of these specimens out of a tank. We create a digital record by implementing that into our operating system, assigning it a unique ID, then basically placing it into the beacon and establishing it back into a tank. And at that point, you basically have secured that patient, that specimen, in our operating system.
You have RFID and barcode, so 2 levels of identity,
correct,
if you will.
Correct. And there are other applications that are used in the space to establish chains of custody. They're point-to-point solutions versus we have an end-to-end solution, and we ingest those point-to-point solutions to offer even another level of security. We use basically military-grade cybersecurity, protective software, and our operating system, cloud-based, integrates with the electronic medical records that are used in IVF today. And so one of the most important things we do is we eliminate double entry. There's another point of human error that happens in this process.
What is that?
So in terms of when you're going to ingest a patient, you input the name one time, you input it into our operating system, that automatically pushes to the electronic medical record. So at that point, you've secured that along with the RFID encryption, and so you've secured that patient's chain of custody.
And double entry means what?
So double entry means an embryologist in a lab having to input the patient's name twice, the freeze date twice, and all other personal information.
More administrative tasks, but still keeps more complexity.
Correct.
Another record to track.
Yes, correct. Now, when we look at it very much, when we look in terms of the trends and where is the market headed, it's clear that if you're going to ingest 66,000 patients in less than 4 years, digital is the application that will, win the war, if you will, in the long term. But what's most important is actually creating a good user experience. And over the last 5 years, what we've done in terms of bringing a fully integrated robotic platform, which let's say services 20% of the market, having a manual tank system that let's say services like 50 to 60% of the market, and then having an offsite solution that services the rest of the market. And so you can see, medical offices aren't designed to be repositories. They only have so much space and there's only so much tissue that they can store. And so generally what you see is while someone is in active treatment, they're going to keep their eggs and embryos and sperm on site. Once they get to a success rate, they'll want to move them to an offsite location. And if they're utilizing the TMRW platform, they have a fully integrated operating system. If they need to recall a specimen, it's like ordering something on Amazon. You actually create an import ticket and the specimen arrives back at your location.
It's like deliver the package, as they say. Question for you on the growth strategy. So do you sell to kind of independent operators? Do you want to go company owned?
Yeah.
What's the growth plan?
Yeah, it's a very important question. So as I mentioned earlier, there are 450 IVF clinics in the US. There are 10 IVF networks that control roughly 60% of the total market. That consolidation has occurred in the last 5 to 7 years significantly. You have groups like KKR, Webster. These private equity groups have rolled up several independent clinics and created these networks that now service a lot of these patients. A lot of our customer base today are the networks that actually
they leverage your service.
Very much.
So they're providing the point of care.
Correct.
The ingestion, as you say.
Correct.
And you cover the back end fulfillment, delivery piece.
That's very true. And the reason why, if you look at actually, why would such large networks want to make such an investment? They've spent billions of dollars, investing in these types of opportunities. So risk becomes a very, very important thing to manage, right? And where's there risk? There's risk where you have human-based processes. Where you have digital applications, you bring down the human risk factor. And so these groups have noticed very carefully that, cryo storage actually has a level of risk with it. If we bring in digital-based solutions like digital specimen management, we can reduce the risk and secure, that side of our business. They have made significant investments into products like Tomorrow to manage that risk.
So you guys nailed the technology, the digital workflow, you got the app. What's the competition like? What's the moat for you? What's the competitive strategy?
Yeah.
More network customers, scaling the process? What's the differentiation?
Yeah, so I think we have a universal application right now in our labware.
Yeah.
Making sure that the labware can integrate in whatever work stream people have chosen to follow. That is our user experience that we'll continue to innovate and evolve around. We have scratched the surface in terms of what we can do to improve the standard of care. As I mentioned earlier, there's roughly 450,000 IVF cycles a year. Plus there are millions of specimens sitting in these dewar tanks across labs, not only in the United States, but throughout the world. So our job is to continue to figure out how to obviously meet these people in their current workflows and integrate that into digital specimen management. I think we'll continue.
You get an operating system too, right? You have software. That sounds like a key differentiator.
Yeah, very important point. You're absolutely right. So that application in itself, integrating on the EMR side, is a critical piece to the overall success. And we feel that at a certain point, we acquire and accumulate so much data, we're going to continue to have a mine of data to look at and see what applications can come from that.
It's interesting. A lot of successful companies in this modern era kind of have the same thing. I'm looking at the trading board right here on the floor.
Yeah.
On the option side, NVIDIA, it's trading higher. NVIDIA is a software company.
Yes.
Most people think of them as hardware, GPUs.
Yeah.
They have CUDA, which is their thing. That's the trend we're seeing, is that it's the software-hardware combinations.
Yes.
And the core competency shifts to the value creation side, which is the hardware tied to the software. In this case, you have that double entry, so that's an easy one, but there's other tracking. You get the RFID in the hardware device.
Correct.
Everything else is just efficiencies, right?
Right. It's taking a work stream and obviously standardizing it in a way that no matter what lab you're at, you have a work experience and a user experience. So as I mentioned earlier, there are 1,800 reproductive endocrinologists in the United States. We do not have enough doctors to treat the problem. That is the bottom line. How do you fix that? Technology. And so what does the future look like in reproductive health? I think robotic applications are going to drive the process going forward. There is a world where I can clearly see that people will send oocytes, eggs, and sperm to remote locations. Robotic platforms will create embryos. They'll send those back to points of care where transfers and retrievals will occur. And if you do that, then you're at a point where you can probably start to address the real demand.
So there's underserved, there's a lot of demand, not enough supply, basically.
Correct. If you look at any G7 country right now and you ask them, are you birthing enough healthy, happy babies to support, what you're losing on a year-to-year basis? Nobody is, right? I mean, Japan as a country, just in comparison, is doing close to 1 million IVF procedures a year, okay? They have actually a huge demographic problem that they're sorting through. They have made reproductive health one of their strategic initiatives, and so they're supporting that coverage for all of their general population. In the US, in comparison, we have 2 states that have a full mandate right now. One is the state of Massachusetts, the other is the state of Illinois. If you look at IVF treatment rates in those 2 states, they are 10 times comparable states across the country.
So they're really focused on it.
They're really focused on it. California is starting an initiative next January. They're going to cover reproductive health.
I mean, it makes total sense. Why not? I mean, this is super critical, and the consequences are, you can quantify them, you can understand the trauma behind it. It's the potential dangers of switching and bad failures.
Yeah, it's massive. And you look at companies that are starting to concentrate on fertility benefits. You have Maven, you have Progeny, you have Carrot. They're going out, they're interacting with employers and their employee bases to offer services to help them. And one of those things is fertility preservation. Egg freezing, where that is today, it grew at 400 times since its inception into the market, all right? That is going to be a whole separate segment of business that continues.
You also have some enablement with that kind of market dynamic. There's entrepreneurial opportunities, also partnerships. What's your partnership strategy? And for folks watching, what's the opportunity to build with you and grow with you? What are some of your kind of a biz dev kind of partnerships, and also what are you enabling for people to do and to have a business around this?
Yeah, it's a great question. So from a partnership strategy, if we look at the customer, what I'll call the private equity side of the equation, we want to be able to provide them, obviously, the safest, method that's standardized across all of their sites. On the physician side of the basis, we collect a lot of data. That data can actually help them see where their success rates are, and we want to continue to help provide that to them so they can analyze their day-to-day practices. What can we do with that data? I think there's a big question mark around that. That's going to be a valuable, commodity for this business going forward.
Well, look, congratulations. I know you guys are only a couple of years in. You got some good numbers, hitting the milestones, nipping at the leader in terms of the numbers. But overall, the category looks like a lot of growth. Congratulations, and thanks for coming on theCUBE and our NYSE studios, probably NYSE Wired, being a part of our inaugural MedTech Unplugged. Thanks for coming on, appreciate it.
Appreciate it, thank you. Thanks for having us. All right.
It's Chief Executive Officer of TMRW Life Sciences. And again, this is an example of digital and transformation where there's the modernization and transformation happening at the same exact time, category opportunity in MedTech. I'm John Furrier, your host of theCUBE. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, John.